Alright, hello everyone and welcome to another cleaning and restoring. This one we're doing something a little bit smaller than a controller, but it's probably going to have more parts than a controller. We're doing the battery powered, or BP, Game Boy Advance. Now, my neighbor had given me this along with a few games, and I actually have a Game Boy Advance, but it's the one that you plug into the wall to charge, you don't put in batteries, so it's the old flip one. So I figured I'd try to take this apart and clean in the inside and restore it to the best that I can. Now, with everything that you clean and restore, again, make sure there's no power connected to it. So we're going to, first of all, take this back part off, so you can clean that on its own. And you're going to get the batteries out. Now, these are actually like full batteries because I barely use this. So, after you take the batteries out, then you can go ahead and take out the screws. Now, there's one, let me point with the screwdriver here. These are tri-wing screws, by the way, so if you don't have a tri-wing screwdriver, don't try to take one of these apart. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tri-wing screws, and it looks like there is a small black Phillips screw right in here, under where the battery cover was. So we'll take all the tri-wing screws out first, and I took the liberty of taking these out on video, all but one of them, because I'm sure this was very time consuming off camera because I wanted to see how tight the screws were, and they were very tight. So I took all the screws out on video so you guys, first of all, didn't have to see me struggle, and second of all, I didn't waste like a half hour of your lives. So I got all 6 of the tri-wing screws out. Now it looks like you will, since this one's clear, I can see inside kind of, and you definitely do have to take the black Phillips screw out. So let me get my Phillips head bit out real quick. This is very helpful, having all these bits for one screwdriver. So, take out this. This is going to be one of those screws where it just doesn't want to come out. Maybe I'll have to use a smaller bit. If worse comes to worse. It's just a Phillips head. If worse comes to worse, I'll just take it out off camera here. I can't get this bit out. If worse comes to worse, like I said, I'll just take it out off camera. Yeah, it's definitely in there extremely tight, so it looks like I'm going to have to take this out off camera, so I'll be back once I get that little Phillips head screw out. Alright, so I managed to get out the black Phillips head screw, and sometimes going back to an old screwdriver, using one that has a replaceable bit, sometimes they're usually harder to take screws out, especially tighter screws like that Phillips head. So I went back and used just a regular Phillips head screwdriver to get that one out. Now, if I ran into a tri-wing screw that was like that, then I'd be in trouble, because I only have one for this replaceable bit screwdriver. So after you get all 7 of those screws out, you're just going to take the 2 halves apart, and this one comes apart relatively easily for me. I'm not sure how yours will. And so then you're left with the 2 halves. Everything you take apart pretty much ends with 2 halves, and I'm looking at this. This doesn't look too hard to take apart, or put back together for that matter. Although I can't see what's on the other side, on this side. Okay. So we'll start with this is the bottom half actually, and if you look, the only other thing in here when you take it apart besides this piece of plastic is a piece of metal right here, and upon looking at it, I can't see that there's any electronics in it. There are 4 little Phillips head screws. If you really want to take this off to clean it more in depth, you certainly can. But I'm going to leave this in and just clean this whole thing how it is, because it doesn't look like this really needs taken off because of water issues. So I'm going to leave this in and just clean this whole thing as it is. As for the bottom half, you'll probably have something that looks like this. You'll have foam down here where the screen is. You can take both of the bumpers out, the right and the left bumper out. They'll just come out on their own. You can wash them how they are. There's nothing you have to do to wash them. So I'm actually going to use this screwdriver again just because I have it with me now after that adventure with that black screw that was right here. Here we have the, whoops, what was that? Okay, that was this little thing. Not entirely sure where you were, honestly. Alright, well, we'll figure that out as we go along, I guess. You definitely went right here somewhere, but if this black piece falls off, it went right here somewhere. We'll figure it out when we put it back together, I guess. But you can wash that on its own. So there seems to be 2 screws. They're both Phillips, and one's right here, and one's right here. So we're going to remove those, and also, after I take this screw out, let me show you what I was about to say. These screws are slightly shorter than the outside ones, so you might want to make sure to separate it. Also, these little plastic pieces on the side, I don't know if all BP Game Boy Advance had these, but this one does. So I'll put this off to the side, I guess. Both plastic pieces will go up to the side. Actually, I'm not 100% sure if you should wash the bottom half by soaking it in water, because the two battery power readers things are right here. Those are still on it, and I'm not sure if those are allowed to get wet. So I would suggest washing this with like a paper towel or something, rather than soaking it in water. I don't think those can get damaged. So we'll take the other screw out of the bottom half here. I'm not sure how different a regular Game Boy Advance is from this kind. I will do a video on one if people want me to, and if it's very different. So after you get those two screws out, you take what's known as the motherboard, or basically the brain, and you kind of lift it up. Now I'm trying to see if this is screwed or connected anywhere else before I like snap this thing in half. It does seem like it's kind of not giving way up top here, but there's not really any screws I'm missing. Alright, the only reason, if yours isn't really giving way, it's probably either clipped in place somewhere, or you're having trouble because of this plug that's up here, so you want to kind of lift up by the plug at the same time. And it's going to take some wiggling all the way around the whole thing to get it out. Oh, there is another screw. Whoops. There's one right in here. If it's, you can see it. There's a bunch of little cylinders sticking up. It's in between all of those. It's another Phillips head. Didn't even see that screw in there, or I would have taken it out, obviously. So once you take that screw out, get it out, put it to the side with all your other ones, then this should come out a little bit easier. Yep, it's coming out. This is connected by a wire though, so be careful. When you take it out, you can flip it over necessarily, and there's a big orange, I'm not sure if yours is going to be orange, but mine's like rust color almost, and it connects the motherboard to the screen right, it's for this wire right here. So you can take this little piece of foam off, it looks like, or can you not? No, you don't want to take that piece of foam off. I was just kidding when I was saying that. So here's where you can do the infamous remove the rubbers and the buttons that are under the rubbers. It seems like this one, the buttons come out with, well, this is all one piece, the rubber with the start and select buttons. And then you can take out the A and the B buttons just by turning it over. Where'd that button go? Oh, it's over here. Alright, so after you take out the A, B buttons, the D-pad, and the start/select buttons, you can take those off. The rubber for the D-pad kind of stays in place, but you can pull it off relatively easily. You can wash all the rubbers and all the buttons. Now, as for washing your actual little Game Boy Advance, you're in a bit of a pickle because there's not really a way to disconnect this as far as I know, or as far as my knowledge can provide. So you're going to want to keep this connected by this wire unless you feel like you can unplug it and plug it back in. I'm not sure that's feasible. So here's the rubber for the A-B buttons, kind of fell off on its own. So pretty much, again, same thing. For both halves of this, I would suggest washing with a paper towel that's like a little bit damp, not necessarily wet, because you want to make sure that you don't drip a single drop onto here, because then you could ruin the whole thing. So I'm not going to wash everything because this one's actually really, really clean. I'm just going to wash this rubber from under the D-pad because it had a bunch of like dust and almost crumbs in it. So I'm just going to wash this, and once it's washed and dry, I will get back for the reassembly of the Game Boy. Alright, everything is cleaned and dry. Everything that I wanted cleaned was dry, which was only this little D-pad rubber. It was really, really dusty inside. So I cleaned that off. So now you're just going to reverse all the steps you took. So first you're going to put your buttons and your rubbers back into place. And just like every Nintendo thing in the world, they made their buttons only fit in one way. So your A and B buttons will fit into place by themselves because there's really only one way they'll go in. Put the rubber back over them. The rubber doesn't stay on very well. That's why mine came off with the motherboard. So then you're going to put in your two, this little rubbery start and select button thing. Not really sure what the technical term for it, 'cause I guess it's the button. Alright, after you put that in, put your D-pad back in. It goes in pretty much any way. I'm not sure there is a specified way. I know the rubber needs to go on a specified way because there's always little hooks that they hook into place on. Make sure you kind of mash your rubber so that it's going back into the D button. Because if you remember, it was kind of stuck together. Alright, so after you put those in, you're going to flip the motherboard or the brain back into place and make sure it's pushed down as much as possible. It's kind of hard to notice, but if you shake it, it shouldn't like rattle or anything. The buttons will rattle, but that shouldn't. So after that, you take this little plasticky piece that I didn't know what it was. It's actually the power switch. And there's going to be a little clip that looks like two teeth. Here, let me point with the screwdriver. There's two little teeth sticking off right there. That you want facing upwards towards the same direction this is facing. And then you kind of drop it back into place, and it should fit relatively easily. And again, you want to make sure it's kind of, you can slide it back and forth now. You're going to want to make sure it's towards the off direction. So then you can take both your little plastics, I'm not sure which way these go in, just kind of hope they fit in snug. Alright, so for the plastics, if you're wondering how they fit into place, there's two edges, one that's all smooth and one that has little like notches in it. You want the side that has the notches facing down. So once you put those in, then you're going to take your bumpers, and this is the right one, so it should go on the right. Whoops, I'm trying to think here. That's actually on the left, so I don't know if that's the right way or the wrong way. This goes in both ways. Alright, well, the power switch fell out. So did this little plastic. Alright, so it looks like the right will actually go on the left when you're putting it back together. I know that's just a great way to think about it. The right goes to the left goes to the right. I knew it would be opposite. Alright, so after you get those in place, you're going to take the other half of your Game Boy and make sure it's lined up so that the batteries line up with where the batteries would go. Drop it into place relatively easily so that it makes sure everything fits into place. I'm actually having a rough time getting this on. It's not kind of fitting in as easily as someone would hope. There we go. It shouldn't be too hard to fit back together, honestly. So the first thing, oh wait, hold the press. Take it back apart. If you just got the two halves together, I'm sorry. I totally forgot to screw the motherboard back into place here with the little brass Phillips head screws that go into it. So let me screw it into place, and then I'll show you where those little screws go, just so you forget, because there are a lot of holes. They always put a lot of holes in these things just so that they know where the easiest obtainable holes are. I totally forgot the screws back into place, so I'm sorry if you did it out of order, like I did, and you followed my steps and you got... Sometimes a magnetic tip screwdriver doesn't help. I'm sorry if you followed the steps I did and you messed it up. Or I messed it up for you, I should say. I shouldn't say you messed it up. That wasn't really your fault, it was mine. I know, I'm a terrible person. Alright, so if you remember, the screws go, there's one that goes in this little hole, but that is between all these cylinders. One to the far right of it, and one that's, even with those ones, that's to the very far left. So let me screw in this last one here. If I could get it into place, that would be great. God, I hate magnetic tip screwdriver. I mean, they're great and all, but sometimes the screw like sticks to the side and you can't get it in. Alright, now that that's screwed into place, now we can put it back together. Again, I'm sorry I did it in the wrong order. Put this back into place here. Alright, after you get it back into place, you're going to take your one black Phillips head screw, the only one in this entire thing, and screw that back into place. It's a longer screw, so that'll take a bit longer to screw in than the other ones you just did. You're going to have to kind of push it because this one is going to be a rough one to get in. And if you have a clear one, mine is kind of clear, you'll be able to see inside and see if the screw has reached the other half, and also you can try to pull it apart. And then you just put in the last 6 tri-wing screws, which I'm going to put in off camera because people might complain about it, so I'll be right back. Alright, after you've gotten all your tri-wing screws back into place, you're basically left with this, which you can't test it now if you don't have batteries in it. But now all you have to do is put your 2 batteries back in, put the cover over, if I could get the cover right, and the cover should fit into place relatively nice, and you can turn it on, and it should work fine. If you don't, I'm not exactly sure what to tell you. If you followed my steps, you should be fine, because as you can see, mine still works fine. So that's pretty much it. So if you liked it, thank you for watching, and leave a like or subscribe. And if there is anything you want me to do, I'm kind of torn. I'm tempted to do the other version of the Game Boy Advance, the flip version. I also have a Nintendo DS, I have a GameCube controller that I want to do, an Xbox Duke controller that I want to do. I haven't decided on what I want to do next. If any of you have any opinions on what you want me to do, then please tell me in the comments below. So thanks for watching.